Welcome to Women Entrepreneurs Radio. I'm your host, Deborah Bailey. And when I started this show in 2008, I was on a mission to promote women-owned businesses and help women succeed by providing resources and valuable tips from other women and men, small business owners. In each interview, my guests speak openly about their triumphs, the scary times, and tough decisions they had to make along the way. Women Entrepreneurs Radio is about showing women how to harness their natural strengths to achieve success on their own terms. Hi everyone, welcome to Women Entrepreneurs Radio, and I'm your host, Deborah Bailey. So glad you could join us today. And if you're listening to this on Podomatic, you can also find this show on iTunes and on Spotify, iHeartRadio, radio.com. There's a few other platforms where you can listen in, wherever your favorite platform is. So I hope you will do that. And if you could leave feedback about the show, 5 stars is always wonderful. If you could do that on iTunes in particular, that would be great, because then that helps the show to be found by more listeners. So you can usually just do that if you're listening on your iPhone or using the Apple Podcasts app, that you can just give a rating. And also if you could just share how you feel about the show, that is wonderful too. And if you want to know more about the platform the show is on, you can go to womenentrepreneursecrets.com and you click on the menu bar, which is podcasts, and there's different links there for the show and where it can be found. And also there is guidelines that you can download if you're interested in being a guest on the show. You can do that there as well. And you can send a message there if you have any suggestions for topics or anything like that. That's also a good place to do that. And you could visit my website, thebaileycoach.com, if you want to hear more about what I'm doing and different blog posts that I have there, and also some of the book coaching services and online courses that I have created. That's a great place to find more information. And also about my fiction writing, you go to brightstreetbooks.com and you'll get information about that and different buy links and links for my newsletter. So you could check that out as well. So I think we've covered all the other things about the show and me, and we're going to get started right now with my guest. Lisa A. Holmes is a human resources executive coach, and author with more than 30 years in HR experience. Lisa holds a Bachelor of Arts and Master of Science in Human Resources from Lindenwood University in St. Charles, Missouri, which is just outside of St. Louis. Presently, Lisa serves as Chief Business Strategist for Strategic Performance of Los Angeles, headquartered in Los Angeles, California, where she's designing and implementing HR solutions that drive sales and profits via Fractional CHRO, HR leadership, on-demand HR, leadership development, executive, and coaching. After much anticipation, Lisa released a self-help career book entitled Job Hunting, Now What? Keeping It Real in the Modern Career Search this past January 2019. And this book is designed for individuals no matter where they are in their careers. This is perfect go-to guide to best understand the modern job search process, the emotional, mental journey, how to assess the career landscape, and how to write an HR beloved resume, and how to maintain a career in an ever-changing world, and so much more. Lisa has been featured in Money Magazine, Clutch, Reader's Digest, and other media publications. So welcome to the show, Lisa.
Thank you so much, Deborah, for having me. I appreciate it.
Well, I'm really glad that we could get together and chat about the topic, and that's 5 proven keys to career success for women, because I think that's, of course, obviously a very important topic for people to know about and what they could do to really improve their career prospects with so much change going on and everything, and people really trying to figure it out. So I'm, really so glad that you could share this and share information from your book. But before we get started, if you could share a little bit about your own journey and what brought you to, really work with HR and to help to work with people in their career planning.
Sure. So, in some cases, people kind of fall into human resources. I was not one that fell into it. I was very deliberate about it.
Mm-hmm.
So I started my career in HR and really just kind of worked my way in the function. I've always been a generalist and had my arms around every piece of the function,
Mm-hmm.
and very purposely approached my career where I was industry diverse. So I didn't necessarily hone in on, I want to work completely in healthcare. I had a wonderful career that allowed me to be fluid enough that I worked in hospitality, in healthcare, in startups, in financial services, in retail. And so I think having that vast exposure really helped me hone my skill not only as an HR person, but as a businesswoman. So I got a chance to see and hear, so much from many different industries and how they look at the business, and partner with many different operators at some of the highest levels of the organization. And I can only tell you that the depth of that has really helped me to be who I am today. And I think the biggest thing for me is that now I've had this wealth of experience. And so, as my grandmother used to say, so now what, right? What are you going to do with that? And I realized just really it hit me pretty significantly, probably 5 or 6 years ago, that how much more helpful could I be if I shared that knowledge with women who don't have a blueprint? I didn't have a blueprint. I just really kind of tried to look at it from my strategic mindset, right? And how it was going to make sense for me, all these moves in my career to the greater good of where I wanted to be in my long-term career. But how much better would it be if I could, share some of that knowledge with women and give them what I think is kind of the blueprint to how to navigate their career as a woman.
Yeah, that sounds, of course, like a great idea, because usually people don't know what to do, and they find themselves in a situation where they don't know who to ask. Everybody else is kind of in the same situation. So when you go from that, or the advice that you get often isn't very helpful, maybe based on someone else's choices. So,
sure.
Yeah.
And if you know your corporate HR person, you might not feel comfortable going to them, right, and asking questions or being vulnerable, in that way. And so, again, It really does start to shut you down even further. It's like, okay, I need direction, but where do I go?
And that's it. That really is what the main thing I think is knowing who to go to, and also who to really trust to move in the direction that you want to go in. So, why don't we start talking about these the 5 points here? What would be number 1 in your list?
I would say number 1 would have to be visionary. So, couple of things, right? 1, be visionary about your career in a way that you have a strategic plan. And what I mean by that is start your career or launch from wherever you are with a vision of where you want to end up. And all of the steps that you take in your career should add up to that point of destination. Now, as it relates to business, I'm going to give you a little side note. As it relates to you and your business today, your people, your team members, the folks that report to you will follow you even if they might be in discontent with the organization or unhappy with the role, right? There's so many of those kinds of things, but they will follow you if you are someone who has a vision. So what I can share is organizations and employees will thrive with someone as a leader who they recognize their challenges, recognize growth opportunities. They can offer solutions and identify talent that produces extraordinary results. So being someone who, obviously in your business, has that vision of what you want to accomplish and how to leverage talent in your business, but then as it relates to your career, understanding where you want to go, what's the path. Because again, if we don't have a vision for it, how do we know it when we see it? How do you know where you're going, right? So you need to have that vision of your own career. And so I can share with you kind of in my personal career journey that, and I can't even tell you back during this time, right? So I was in my very early 20s, right? And I've always been kind of process oriented, strategic thinking back then, even still. And so I remember mapping out kind of the points of where I wanted to be in my career. So I knew that I wanted to end up being, an executive HR leader for a Fortune company. I wanted to have these kinds of experiences, and I kind of laid them out for myself. And so I never lost track or sight of that. So as I progressed in my career, all of those roles and changes and opportunities were to help me craft a deeper understanding of my business, but to also lead me to the point of destination.
I think a lot of people may have an idea they just want to get away from where they are in the moment, or they just want to get to something, but they may not necessarily have a plan in place as to where they want to ultimately get to.
Yeah, so here's two things I can offer on that. Most often that occurs when someone is emotional, right? Something's happened that's stressed you out, that makes you say, I hate this. I don't want to do it anymore, right? So you're emotional and caught up in the moment, right? And so, which is difficult to make a very clear decision when you're in that state of mind. So, you really need to take a pause, exhale, as we say, and then identify what it is that you don't like. Be very specific, because again, we don't want to repeat the pattern of looking for positions that, we're accustomed to if the same result or the role has those same ingredients, right? Or same responsibilities. So say, for instance, I don't like, being analytical. Maybe numbers are not really my thing. Maybe that's the stressor, right? That's not my strength. So you're not going to want to look for the next role that has, right, a very, one of the role responsibilities has anything to do with the analytics of data. So being able to understand what it is that you specifically don't want, but then on the same side of the token, what's going to bring you joy and happiness? So what is it that you need to have in your career and your life that's going to bring you joy and happiness? And sometimes we can find job opportunities that bring us that joy and happiness, right? We don't have to look at it as it's just a job, right? Maybe your passion is, philanthropy. Okay. Well, maybe the last job didn't afford you the opportunity to really work in that space. So if your joy and happiness is going to come from that, that's where you need to put your focus, right? How do I bridge the gap from where I am today to that role that's going to bring me joy and happiness?
That sounds like a perfect way to have a vision. That's for sure.
Right. Absolutely.
That
This
sounds
is true.
perfect.
Yes.
Oh my God. Yeah, that sounds perfect actually. I think that's the thing that a lot of times people don't know where they're heading, and I think maybe that's true of people when they're younger. And I know younger, I may have known what I wanted, but then I may have gotten some um, positions that I really liked, and then moved to something else, and then it's like, oh, this really isn't where I belong, and then trying to find out which way to go from there. But I think as you get older and you go through the kind of things that you don't like and don't work for you, and you start to define differently what's the right thing for you and your skills and what you enjoy, then you're going to make different choices as you go along, hopefully. And,
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Be more strategic about where you're heading. But then, I also have a lot of former coworkers who were in IT, where I spent a lot of time, and a lot of them, they may not be totally thrilled with what they're doing. They may not be happy with their positions, but they've been there for X amount of years, and they're kind of hanging in there right now because they've been there so long. So there's that as well, where I think people sometimes get to a point where they're just like, well, I've been here and I'll just make the best of it. And,
those are the decisions that we make, right?
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
But those are our decisions, and we have to own the decision, right? So, we can't, we have to accept it if that's the decision we're going to make, but we shouldn't do it begrudgingly, right? Because life can be very difficult and hard at that point, because every day you're going to dread this decision that you made. But one of the chapters in my book, Job Hunting Now What, the very first chapter I talk about is the emotional stress that's associated with the job search process, because most people don't want to go through it, or if they go through it, they come to realize that, am I crazy? What's going on, right? Why am I feeling this way? And so you really almost go through the 5 stages of grief. Although no one's really died, something traumatic has happened in your life, or will be happening, right? The change, or just the search and the, not knowing where you're going to go. And so it becomes difficult. So yeah, people, they start out with good intention, right? They say, I need help. But then when you really have to get to it and sit down and get serious about it, it can be scary.
Yes.
Yeah. But I talk about that in the book, and then what that looks like and how to get over it.
Well, that's good. That's very, very helpful advice for people who may start to feel that tension and anxiety, and then feel that,
sure,
something's wrong with them, but that really isn't the case. So what would point number 2 be?
So point number 2, I say be visible. So if you can imagine, I've had opportunity, obviously, to work with quite a few female leaders in organizations. And we have conversations about their stresses in their career, or, what's going on in their environment. So oftentimes they might feel like they're being overlooked, or they're not being taken seriously. And when I start to dig into the conversation, I come to realize a few things. Maybe they're introverted, and they spend a good deal of their time at their desk or in their office. That's awful hard for people to get familiar with you, to know who you are, understand the impact that you're currently making in the organization, if you're not visible, when you're not out networking across the organization and talking to people and finding people that in these conversations that can advocate for you as you're trying to climb the ladder, right? So, I say that everybody needs kind of a sponsor, or, their personal board of directors. And you build that through personal relationships and letting people get to know you, understand kind of, how you look at your work and your career, and just really being, in some cases, transparent about some of your challenges and asking for help. But you can't, you can't really navigate very well without the assistance of others. So you have to be comfortable with being visible and seeking, opportunity to gain exposure across the organization, and then the industry and your community. We go to work, we put our heads down, we work, right? 50, 60 hours at our desk. We sometimes neglect to network outside the organization. Well, we all have professional associations and organizations that we should be connected to. And, it's awful difficult that if you find yourself in a position of looking for your next role outside your organization, who outside the four walls of your organization knows you?
That's true.
And so just being able to, leverage some of those professional organizations, being involved in community efforts. You never know where your connections and next opportunities will come from. And it could be from the relationship you might have had with another woman who's in Jack and Jill, or who's in, her daughter and your daughter are in Girl Scouts. And so, finding, some of those other opportunities outside of the organization in your community, as well as networking across the organization.
I think that's a great idea. And that's something that I also realized from when I was freelancing, that you really had to get out there and talk to people. And in that case, I was going to a couple of business meetings and trying to connect with other organizations, that you really had to get out there. And that was something that I realized at that point was really important. And when I was, working at AT&T for several years, of course, that was a different situation when I was in IT. And at that time, the company had a lot of different things going on, a lot of organizations. They had a whole training unit. So if you took advantage of it, you really could interact with a lot of levels of the company. They even paid for education at that time. So someone who was really, I guess, savvy enough to see what they had could really make a lot of inroads for their career, whether they stayed at the company or not, because they could make a lot of connections even just within that place. And what I see now, because I've done, tech writing, contracting, and everything, what I see now, a lot of these companies, it's not the same kind of thing where the company tries to provide all these different things underneath, their auspices. It's more, well, you come in, you sit down, you do your work, or you work all day and all night, and it's almost like you're not supposed to have a life outside of that place, because they just want to squeeze as much work out of you as possible, which is unrealistic. But it just seems that for a lot of these companies, or maybe people work in them, there's not the idea that I can't narrow my whole life for this place, because then when the layoffs come, which they always seem to, or changes come in your career, then now, as you said, you're here and like, who else do I know outside of here? Who do I know outside my department?
Yeah.
Right.
And so, in those particular cases, your role might be eliminated in your current department. But however, we know in HR that there are things called transferable skills. But those skills could transfer into other opportunities. However, if the neighboring department has no knowledge, their leader has no knowledge of you
Mm-hmm.
and what those skills you have, those that you possess that you could offer to a role maybe in that area of the business.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you'll never be considered for that if they don't know who you are.
Right.
Point being, be visible, right?
Right.
Really, really important.
People really have to take it in their own hands and not wait, I guess.
Well, our male counterparts, our male counterparts, we see them slapping hands and kissing babies, right? And you wonder, so let's get real for a second. We often wonder, I know this individual, I know their skill set, right? And you might be more qualified than he. And you sit back in awe and wonder, how did they get promoted over you? Or how did that happen?
Mm-hmm.
Well, because they get out and they meet people.
Mm-hmm.
They are visible. They're talking to other leaders. They're golfing. They're doing whatever they do, right? And we can't get upset about it. We have to seize the same opportunities, but it seems to be, something that they do naturally.
Right.
We as women, sometimes not so much. And so, I think that's one of the things that we have to, although we hate it about them, right? We have to sit back and take note and realize, okay, well, wait a minute. Maybe I need to, have more of that. Maybe I need to go out and maybe I need to, ask for the coffee date. Maybe I need to ask for the lunch date. Right. And so, it's really, it's crucial. It's crucial for people to know who you are.
Right.
And then I think point number 3 on our list of 5 has to be vocal. I have been, again, in the room with many, 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 many women among our male counterparts, and we will sit there mute and let them run the show, have the floor. We have so many things that we can offer, insights. We can offer and add to the conversation, but we will sit there and say nothing. We will make ourselves note takers and not say a thing in the conversation. Unless you're the admin secretary, right? You shouldn't be taking notes, really.
Right.
You should be engaging in the conversation. And, just being, being vocal and learning to speak up and speak out and have a willingness to have courageous conversations. It can be difficult, but you have to do it, right? So again, going back to the how do people know who you are and what you can offer if you're in every meeting and you say nothing? Or for me in my career, I can tell you what has always worked for me is I would identify an opportunity in the conversation. And if it was something in my wheelhouse, I would take that on. So, for example, I was a senior people officer with a Fortune 500 company, and we were in a conversation with a couple hundred other HR professionals. And we were talking about how we needed to fill some very crucial positions in the organization and where this was all going to lead for us if we could not figure out a strategy to do so. And I raised my hand and said, I have an idea. We offer this wonderful summer internship program, but those roles and those students that we bring in aren't aligned to those opportunities that would equate to a long-term hire for us. We give them a wonderful summer experience, and we say, thank you for coming, and we send you back out the door. Well, we needed to identify those candidates through that summer internship program that could come and fill those positions and become long-term hires for us. And our CEO said, well, why don't we do that? And so no one could answer, right? and so he doesn't know me from the other 200 plus HR professionals in the room. And he says, what's your name? And I tell him my name. And he says, I want you in a couple of weeks to get on my calendar with a solution to this problem. Well. And I did. Right? I did. Trust me, I did. So I can tell you that I solved that problem for the organization. But if I had not have raised my hand and been vocal about it, right, that I've got an idea, why do we do it that way? I would not have elevated myself in the room among my HR peers. And I can tell you in the long term plan, right, it really created a robust strategy around how we were going to solve this problem. You know, just not this summer, but ongoing, right? And building better relationships with universities and just on and on, right, around the strategy of how we were going to deploy it. But then the bigger thing is the following year, I kept this nonsense up all year long, right? Just figuring out how I could keep interjecting myself, which, you know, that's my personality. And I kept it up. But then when it was time for me to have my performance evaluation, my immediate leader said, you know, I've been told that I only have budget to do, you know, a meets expectation minimum increase for everyone else that's on my team. He called me up and said, I have to tell you that in good conscience, I could not do it for you. He went to the same CEO and said, you know the output, you know what she's contributed this year because she's had conversations directly with you. That particular year, I got a $32,000 raise.
Wow.
Because so what I tell you.
Oh my God.
Right, I know how it works. So being vocal will pay off for you.
Wow, that's nice raise.
My husband could not believe it. He thought I was calling to say, like, oh my God, I spoke out of school, right? Got myself in trouble with the crosswise with the CEO or something, right? And he's like, you got what?
Exactly. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, I did.
Wow.
And it's all because I've never been afraid to raise my hand and say, I identify an opportunity and let me take that on and develop a solution and a plan.
That's a wonderful example. That's so wonderful.
But that takes me to point number 4, which is adding value. I don't think that women, in some cases, we really embrace our authentic power. If we really knew how powerful we could be, oh my goodness, the things that we could do in our business and our personal lives, only if we could just figure out how to embrace our authentic power. And knowing that we have unique skills and gifts and talents and leveraging them to make a difference, just like I just told you, right? I've done it so many times in my career where and yes, no one wants to take on extra work, but however, what's it worth to you? What's it worth to you, right? What's it worth to you when it comes to your career, your happiness, your, the longevity in your career, the things that you can learn from having these opportunities that might not have normally come your way had you not raised your hand and said, I can add value.
And yeah, that's the idea, that you really have to put yourself out there and let people know.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
But it's easy to say, oh my God, I got so much other stuff to do right now. I can't take on anything else.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. What's the word to you? Do you want to, do you want to have lunch and talk to the CEO?
Right.
And, right?
Right.
And talk to him about your strategy?
Mm-hmm.
Or do you want to keep having lunch at your desk? Which one do you want to do?
Right. That's true. That's true. And I think a lot of times people don't look at it that way. They're just looking at, oh, there's more responsibility I would have to take on if I do this. Or the fear that they're not really going to be enough to do it. And that's a lot of people.
Don't we always have the fear that we're never enough?
Oh, but sure.
Trust me, you are, right? You are. You're, even if you don't necessarily have what you think you need to own right now. Maybe, maybe there's something in your skill set that you think, okay, gosh, I don't know as much about that as I could know. Mm-hmm. Well, guess what? So let me tell you, as the HR person, I have promoted more men who did not know the job that they were going to. But they had the willingness to want to learn. They, so again, the opportunity was afforded to them and not to a woman, because they had the willingness to step out there. And as they used to say, right, faking it until you're making it.
Yes, right? That's for sure.
And they are excellent at it. Mm-hmm. And get promoted to positions. And we think as women, we have to know A, B, C, and all the way to Z and everything in between and around, right?
Right.
To be ready for the next opportunity. No, you don't.
That's true. That's true.
Everything has a learning curve. Everything has a learning curve. And there's an opportunity to learn and grow in any new role. And we have to just give ourselves that chance.
That is very true. That's very true. And I think a lot of times people don't look at it that way. Or, a lot of it also for women is conditioning that they should be quiet and just maybe someday someone will recognize all the work you've done. And if you just kind of hope that they will, if you just work hard enough, they'll acknowledge you, that kind of thing that I definitely see.
But working hard is, we know that it's necessary, it's required that we work hard. But just working hard is not going to get you where you're trying to go. Most often, the quiet ones get overlooked because they've got their head down working hard, and opportunity passes you by because you're not looking up to see what's going on around you.
That's true. I totally agree. Oh my gosh, that's so true. So, Lisa, what is your fifth point?
The fifth point is stay ready. When we talk about staying ready, I have, again, been with female leaders who want to think about things. So when opportunities are posed, they want to think about it a long time. Want to overanalyze it and overthink it. Well, sometimes you only get one shot. And if you say no to the opportunity, it may not ever come back around for you. So just having the ability to maintain a standard of excellence will set us apart from your peers, and seizing every opportunity and be open to taking a leap in uncharted waters and territory. So that goes back to when an opportunity poses itself, think about it obviously, right? You want to make sure you're making a wise decision, but don't pass it up because out of fear Don't pass it up because you're thinking, I'm not ready and I don't have the skills. And trust me, we can talk ourselves out of anything if we let that spin around in our heads long enough. We can talk ourselves out of it.
So that's true.
But staying ready. So one of the things that I share with my coaching clients, they come to me, I need to put together my resume. Well, what do you mean you need to put together a resume? Your resume should always be on lock and load. You know, and the easy way to do that is you build it as you go along. You never just wait and let that thing sit and be dormant, and then when you need it, you gotta craft it from scratch. No, you should be building it as you go along in your career. So every time you take a new opportunity or you have a new success in your role, you need to take that and move it to your resume. So if you take a new role, you find the job description and modify it to where it's, you know, it's reasonable and it really, you know, speaks to what the role responsibilities are concisely. Move that to your resume. And then as you continue to grow in the role, the bullet points thereafter should be those successes. And you should never need to let me put together my resume. It should always be on lock and load so you stay ready.
Well, as you know, most people they don't do that.
Don't do it.
They don't do that. And then when it's then those are the ones who are like, oh, I want to look for something. And then, of course, then comes that emotional stress of creating a resume from nothing or updating one that hasn't been updated in years. And now there's all that involved. And then they, a lot of times, don't move past that point because the thought of it is so stressful because they haven't been keeping up with it.
No, not at all. And then, you know, in most organizations these days, we leverage technology in HR to make sure that we, you know what talent we have in the organization and going out often and making sure that you update your profile in the system, right? So if, for example, I'm an HR person and I'm looking to fill a role, that's the first thing I'm going to do is source and see what talent do we already have in the organization. And I can only do that if you have your profile updated. If it's not updated, right, and I don't know you personally, then you get passed by with, you know, potential opportunities. And we are always upset saying, well, why didn't I get a call about the job? Well, you know, you have to make sure you stay ready for when those opportunities come and you're available and people know who you are. And so, you know, just making sure that you're not afraid to take the leap when the opportunity poses itself.
That's so important.
So I tell this story about, so many years ago, I guess probably now, oh gosh, maybe 8 or 9 years ago, or maybe 10 now since I think about it, 10 years ago, I was in a role, doing well in the role, loving what I was doing. And then I got a phone call from one of my peers from a prior organization who said, there's a role that you'll be perfect for. Do you want to go? And when she told me who it was, I said, heck yeah, I want to go. What you talking about? I want to go. Yes, I want to go. And so again, she worked in a department that supported. She worked in learning and development. I worked in HR, right? So she supported my business. And so she knew me well, knew what my work output was like, you know, and so she knew me, you know, very closely. And so she was no longer with the company. Called me several years after she had been gone and said, this role at my new place of employment is perfect for you. Do you want to go? Well, here's the thing. it would have required that I pack up my family and leave the place where I'd raised my children in St. Louis, where our family and friends were, to move to the Southwest. So I moved to Phoenix, and we had just built a brand new house. Mm-hmm. We had only lived there 18 months. Mm-hmm. And we had just gotten things exactly like we wanted it, right? It was our dream house, and we were settling in like life was good. Mm-hmm. And this opportunity became available, and it was offered to me. And my husband and I realized, okay, this is the next thing along my career path, and it made sense. And we could do it. And did it stress me? Oh, heck yes. I can tell you that when they moved all of my belongings out of my house, and I sat behind the moving truck and they had my car on the trailer, I looked over at my house and I started to cry. Because I'm thinking, what in the world am I about to do? I have no idea. Wow. And I'm moving my life across the country. But had I not taken the opportunity, I've had so many other blessings that have come to me since then, not just me personally, but also my children, my husband. Had I not taken the leap of faith, right, to move outside of our comfort zone and take the role, some of those things would have never been options for us based on geographically where we lived. So being willing to sometimes be uncomfortable with being uncomfortable. And I was uncomfortable because thus I cried.
Well, that's a big, when you think about what you're doing, and now you had your thing all together there where you were, and then now here's this other opportunity. It's like, okay, is this really the right thing to do? So I can understand that feeling in the beginning, at least. Is this the right way to go? But as you were saying about having a vision and all that, if you didn't have that, then that's not a decision you probably could have been able to make.
Right. Yeah. Because I would have just been comfortable where I was. Again, life was good. Right. I had a really nice job. I was very happy in it, doing really well. I was making some really nice bonuses, and life was great.
Right.
And so there are the 5 keys to career success for women.
Well, that's perfect. Can you please let everyone know where they can find out more about you and also about your book?
Sure. So if you look me up on LinkedIn, I am Lisa A. Holmes, MSHR, based in Los Angeles. Again, my business is Strategic Performance of Los Angeles. The work that I do is to work with organizations and help them to increase their revenue and grow profits through aligning fractional HR services, leadership development, executive coaching, outplacement services. And then a couple of times a year, I do some strategic retreats for executives as well as entrepreneurs. And we go out and do it in some really cool destinations here in Southern California. And then the book, Job Hunting, Now What? Keeping It Real in a Modern Career Search. I've been blessed that this book is on sale just about everywhere, so you can find it on Amazon, BarnesandNoble.com, Walmart.com. Just about every independent bookstore is carrying it. If you're in Canada, you can get it at Chapters. And so it's doing really well, and I think the best thing that I can tell you about the book is, if you have ever wanted the playbook to navigating the search from an HR executive who will tell you all the tips and tricks. This is for you. I tell you how to negotiate more money, and I even give you the script on what to say. And right, because we often don't ask because we don't know how to ask.
Yes.
I tell you that. I tell you so many more of my little tips. I have one chapter of the book that I talk about my secret weapon and how it's worked for me many, many times, and I've had my coaching clients do it as well in landing roles. And so I tell you all the ins and outs of things that I know from my professional experience as well as my personal experience.
I know that will be extremely helpful for everyone to read and really understand what they can do to take charge of their career.
Yes.
And not be stuck.
If you follow the book, it's a step-by-step. I purposely did not quote anything that you can find out on the internet and could have read yourself. I did not bother you with small details. I'm someone that you need to give it to me and give it to me quick and concise because my attention span can be short. And so people nowadays want quick information. So this is a very quick read. This book is 105 pages. And if you follow it chapter by chapter and do exactly what I tell you, you'll have success.
So I'm sure everybody's going to benefit from reading that, and they can find it just about anywhere, so that's even better. So Lisa, we've had really the conversation here covering all these important points for women in particular to learn how to manage their careers. So do you have any final thoughts before we close?
Well, I think my only final thought is, understanding that you have the power and control over your own career. You are the CEO of you, and know that. And run your career as it is a business, right? Because it is the brand of you. And making sure that you are doing everything that really presents you in the best possible way.
So, well, there's nothing more to be said after that. I think that's a perfect way to end the show today. Lisa, I want to thank you so much for joining me. This has been a wonderful conversation. I'm so glad we could finally connect. I just thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate you.
Everyone, definitely share this with your friends. Share that with anyone you know who's out there and looking to get their career going or their business. Also, there's still these tips can really be used in that way as well. So definitely share this and check out Lisa's book. I think that will be something that anybody can get a lot out of. So once again, it's been Women Entrepreneurs Radio with host Deborah Bailey. And we'll see you again next time. Bye now. Thanks for joining us. You can also join in the conversation on Facebook.com/Women Entrepreneurs and on the website WomenEntrepreneurSecrets.com. And don't forget to listen in on dvcoach.podomatic.com and on iTunes.